for the Otter transcription. It's not live streaming anywhere. It's for the transcription that it will come afterwards. Okay, right, so just to get us started, I will briefly tell you about Autistic Girls Network in case you don't know. So my name's Kathy and I run Autistic Girls Network, which is a charity that supports autistic girls and women and their families, and mainly campaigns for earlier diagnosis of autistic girls. Sorry, just admitting people. So that they can be recognised and supported much earlier than they are today, and hopefully not have to go through transition to secondary school without having that really important recognition and support. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Chloe. All of you know who Chloe is, who've signed on today, so I'm actually not going to introduce her any further, and I'm sure that she's going to do her own much better introduction than I could do. And then I have some questions for her, and we'll see how much time we have at the end to have questions from everybody. I imagine we're not going to have loads of time, so if there are loads of questions, I can tell you now that we're not going to get them all answered, but we will do as much as we can. Okay, over to you, Chloe.
Oh my god, okay, I wasn't expecting to do an introduction.
Oh, sorry,
hi.
We can go straight into questions.
You're so fine, you're so fine. Hi, my name's Chloe. I'm from Australia, if you can't tell by the accent. I have had multiple people not understand me since being an island, so that's been great. I am an actor, I'm a disability advocate, I'm a horse rider, I am an author. You might know me from my book, Different Not Less, or you might know me from Heartbreak High as Quinny, or you might know me from my YouTube or my TikTok channel, or maybe you don't know me at all and you have no idea what you're doing here. But hopefully after this hour you do know what's going on. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, right, so we'll get straight into the questions. So you've said that you wrote Different Not Less because you felt completely unrepresented when growing up and you wanted to stop that from happening to young neurodivergent people. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I grew up never seeing myself represented on screen, in media, in books, in other people in my life, whether it be on screen or off screen. And it really affected me growing up, particularly as a young girl growing up. We desperately look towards our peers and media and the books that we read and the characters that we love, and we look for similarities, we look for people like us, and I never ever found anyone like that. And it deeply affected my understanding of my identity and my understanding of who I was, because growing up never seeing yourself, you grow up with an understanding that, well, if I can't see myself and I can see all of my friends and all of my family, I can see them in these characters and I can see them in other people in the world, and I can't see myself, well, does that mean that I'm not supposed to be here? So that was a massive reason as to why I started my advocacy journey in the first place, because I didn't want other young people to grow up having that same feeling of exclusion and feeling like they were on an alien planet.
Kathy, you're muted.
There I was trying to be really good and not make a noise tapping away while you were speaking, and I didn't even remember to unmute myself. Okay, right, so what's the story of Different Not Less, and who is your ideal reader and what are they going to get from it?
Different Not Less is a neurodivergence guide to getting a better understanding of yourself and finding your happily ever after. The ideal reader of it is everyone. It's a book that I wish I had been handed when I was given my diagnosis. It's a book that I wish my mum had been handed when I was given my diagnosis, because perhaps she wouldn't have cried in the waiting room. It's a book that I wish my teachers and my doctors had had. It's a book that I wish my friends and my peers had, so that perhaps they could understand myself and so many other millions upon millions of other people just that little bit better. It's a book that is very much for every human, because we need every single human to partake and to be involved in order to create a better future for everyone.
Yeah, we do. You're absolutely right. Okay. What would be the key point you'd like someone to take from your book?
I think it depends on who it is that's reading it. If you are a neurodivergent person who is reading my book, my key point that I want you to take away from it is, number one, you have the right to live in a world that caters towards you, and your mind is magic, and it is so important that you understand that. To people who aren't neurodivergent that are reading this book, the key point that I want them to take away from it is to start listening to neurodivergent voices. There has been too much information for far too long, of non-neurodivergent people telling the world of who we are and what our minds are that's simply incorrect and wrong. And it's time that neurodivergent voices are actually heard, because you can't change and fix and help a community unless it's actually that community that's speaking. So if you're not neurodivergent, this book is a sit down, shut up and listen.
Yeah, well said. Okay. EJ says, I'm reading it at the moment and I feel like you're describing my life. And I bet that happens. I bet that happens a lot.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, just admitting more people there. So next question. Now we're going to move on to special interests. I don't like that term, but it's the term that people know what you're talking about. Passionate interests is what I prefer to say. So passionate interests are obviously very special to you. Can we talk about your passionate interests and why they're so important, and how allies around neurodivergent people can help them enjoy their passionate interests?
Oh my goodness, I could talk about this for ages.
That's okay. We've got a while.
So my special interests are the Titanic. I'm in love with the Titanic. My special interests are sharks. I've got a shark tooth on my necklace. It's dinosaurs. I'm wearing a dinosaur jumper and I have dinosaurs in my ears. It's horses, and it's writing, and it's acting. And the special interests are so important, and something that I will like scream from the rooftops for the rest of my life, that it's so important that we value and that we uphold these special interests and we don't allow other people to take them down, and that people in our lives, that parents of neurodivergent children and teachers of neurodivergent children, nurture these special interests for multiple reasons. Number one, special interests are a calming thing for an autistic person. Having a special interest is so important to the well-being of a human being. But above that, so many people believe that special interests are going to stop or hinder an autistic person from living out their life. Special interests are the reason why so many autistic people are bloody brilliant at their jobs. Like I said, my special interest is Titanic. When I was a very, very young girl, for my birthday, we went to a Titanic exhibition, and I was mute at this time. I never spoke to anyone that wasn't my immediate family, and even then it was usually only in movie quotes. And there was this Titanic exhibition, and I noticed that some of the names of the passengers were wrong. And so little mute me went up to this old person who was like curating the museum, and I gave him a piece of my mind. I was yelling at him. I was telling him he was wrong. And that special interest gained my ability to public speak and to speak my mind and to have that voice of social justice and to speak out when things were wrong and when things weren't correct and when things were unjust. My special interest of horses means that I am able to connect to animals that other people have discarded. And it means that at the end of 2019, I went to Texas to compete in the Extreme Cowboys World Finals. I couldn't even leave my house 6 months beforehand, nevertheless go to another country, literally the other side of the world by myself. And my special interest of acting means that I now get to be a lead actor in Netflix. Like, what the heck? That's crazy. Special interests are so important that we nurture, not just on a career level, like what I was just speaking about, but as a human. It is so important that we value these special interests, because special interests are so important to the well-being of a person.
Okay. And so do you have, I'm sorry, I'm going off track on our questions here. Do you have people that you can talk to about your special interests that share them?
Not necessarily people that share. Well, yes, I have so like one of my special interests is music. So when I go to concerts, I have friends that are like my specific concert friends, and when I do my horse riding, I have my rodeo friends who are my specific rodeo friends, and most of them are like 75-year-old cowboys who I could never speak to them about anything else. But when I'm at my rodeos, these are my people, and when I'm at my concerts, these are the fangirls are my people, and when I go to the Titanic exhibitions, the other people there are my people. But in my personal life, my family and my fiance and my siblings and the people in my life, they will listen to me speak about the same facts infinite times over, and will allow me to get just as excited about it as if it was the first time I told them this fact. I don't think having people that share your interests is important. It's important that to have people in your life that value your love for your interests.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I bet that there's a lot of people on here who would like to continue talking about special interests, and I will say we can go back to them but we're going to carry on with the other questions now. Oh, and congratulations on your engagement, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Just one of the reasons why 2022 was a pretty big year for you. Okay, so the next one is, actually, this is quite relevant. 2022 was a big year for you for more reasons than just the book. Has it been all positive, or has the added attention made things difficult?
Oh, it has definitely made things difficult. I've been in burnout for like 9 months now. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate now having a life where I am getting to do everything that I love, and navigating being able to do all of that and also looking after my mental health. I am doing so much and having so many incredible opportunities, which I am so privileged to have and so blessed about. But with that, it comes the shutdowns, and comes the burnout, and comes the meltdowns, and comes with having to find a greater understanding of your mental health and looking after your mental health and valuing your mental health. I think as a society, we have such an idea that unless we are constantly busy and constantly working, then we don't hold value, which is so silly. And retraining my brain to realize that it's okay to take breaks, and taking breaks is working, because I can't give my all. I can't come and speak to you guys if I'm not looking after myself behind the scenes too. So it has been incredible. It has been the most absolutely hectic year of my life, but it has also been probably one of the most difficult, trying to find that happy medium.
Yeah, and I think probably that's, not to the same extent, because we're not all in a Netflix series, etc. But I imagine that is a balance that we all try to find. But you're right, it's knowing yourself that's the real key to that, and that's why so many adolescents really hit trouble when they hit burnout, because they don't know themselves yet. So all the more reason why we need to get people recognized earlier. Okay. Tell us about the filming of Heartbreak High. Did they make enough reasonable adjustments for you to feel comfortable on set?
I wouldn't have done this show if they didn't make enough reasonable adjustments for me to have me on set. I don't work on projects that don't respect my neurodivergent mind. When I got the job of Quinny, I was immediately having calls with the producers of the show and the writers of the show, both to fill out Quinny's character, but also to make sure that I was accommodated and that I was safe on set. When I moved up to Sydney to actually film the show in pre-production, we had about 3 weeks of pre-production, and I had meetings in that time with every single one of the directors and all of the producers, and the costume designers and the hair and makeup artists to ask me, what can we do to accommodate you? What do you need? And it's literally that simple. It's literally that simple. The amount of times that I've been told that I can't have certain jobs and that I can't do certain things because I'm autistic, or that I need to lower my accommodations and lower my needs and lower my expectations. Literally all it took was one question, and the accommodations that I needed did not affect anyone on the set and did not affect anything in the set. And in fact, the cast was speaking to me about it and was saying that because they were making accommodations for me, it was actually spilling out and making them have accommodations too. By making accommodations for one person, you realize the value of everyone else's accommodations too, and how easy it is to create an accessible environment for everyone.
So if you're comfortable with it, can we talk about the kind of accommodations that were good for you? Because I imagine there'll be a lot of people here interested in that.
Yeah, so one of the biggest accommodations, the first thing that we did is I had a meeting with the wardrobe department, and we went through all of the clothes that they had picked out for Quinny's character, and I tried all of them on, and any clothes where they were too itchy or they felt too tight or they felt yuck or there was big tags on them, we just got rid of them. It didn't matter how cool the clothes looked or how perfect they were for Quinny's character. If they didn't feel right, they were gone. I had my own room or my own caravan, depending on the set that we were on for that day, to make sure that when I wasn't on set, I could leave and completely just be in a complete sensory no thanks zone. So I didn't have to be around the lights and the cameras and the hundreds of people constantly. I had my noise cancelling headphones with me constantly on set, and whenever you see Quinny's like purple bag, my noise cancelling headphones are in there. So like as soon as they would call cut, I could like pull out my headphones from the bag and put them on. There was, and then it was also things like the clapperboard, the thing, you know, where you go like action. Whenever they had to do that, they would let me know if I was too close so I can move away. They also put velvet on it so that when it did clap, it wasn't as loud as it usually would be. There was so many things that they did, and all of these things just made it that much easier. And also just knowing that if I was having a bad day, that I already knew that they understood me and that they cared about me and they valued me as a wholly autistic human, just made it so much easier.
It sounds great, to be honest. But I imagine that you brought a great deal to the character of Quinny that they didn't know about as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how you kind of shaped the character?
Yeah, so like I said, I had a lot of meetings with the writers to kind of flesh out who Quinny was. And the writing team was incredible, and the fact that Quinny was written by a neurodivergent woman. And then we also had an autistic person as well who was in the writer's room, who was a consultant for Quinny. And so there was multiple neurodivergent people behind Quinny's characters to make sure that she was the autistic experience, and she was you know, a good autistic experience and showcasing what autism really was. And I think you can really see that in her character. A lot of Quinny was my own story. A lot of it was the writer of Quinny's story. A lot of the scenes where Quinny is stimming or overwhelmed or overstimulated or acting like an autistic human being wasn't part of the script. It was Chloe being Chloe, and they happened to capture it on camera, which again, I think really just adds to her authenticity.
Yeah, I agree. And just in case there are people who haven't heard of Heartbreak High yet and haven't seen it, perhaps you could just tell us, you know, kind of the skeleton of the story.
Yeah, so Heartbreak High is a reboot of, or a reimagining of the 90s show, which was also called Heartbreak High. It's a teen high school drama / comedy. It's very Australian, it's very raw, it's very beautiful. It has such beautiful whole fleshed out characters, and if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix, so you can go and watch it if you feel so inclined.
Okay, little plug there. Okay, so tell us about your other big developments in 2022.
Oh my goodness. I mean, my book came out like pretty much a week before Heartbreak came out. So that was crazy.
That was big, wasn't it?
Yeah, massive. Like a lot happened all in kind of one little period. So that happened. I won an actor award for playing Quinny, which is the Australian version of the Oscars, I guess. I don't know how I would explain it to people that aren't Australian. I won Woman of the Year, which again, like, what the heck, crazy. I got engaged, so that's cool. Yeah, there was like a lot that happens this year, or last year, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder, you know, in 10 years time, wonder what you're going to think about 2022. Was that kind of your pivotal year, or are there more things going to happen? Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. I hope so. I hope that's not the peak. I mean, it would be a sick peak, but I hope I still get to do stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what's next for you, Chloe?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I'm working on a lot of projects at the moment, which I'm very excited about and very excited to tell everyone about. Overall, I am learning how to look after myself and look after this version of Chloe where a lot of the world knows now. So I'm trying to figure out how to accommodate for that. I just want to advocate, and I just want to make sure that other young people can grow up not feeling like I grew up. And whatever form that takes, who knows? We're just kind of riding the roller coaster and seeing what happens.
And what would you say in terms of self-care and taking care of yourself, and maybe being in burnout or trying to avoid burnout? What advice would you give to young people?
Learn what your limitations
or older people, come to that.
Well, yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is to learn what your limitations are. And that's so much easier said than done. A lot of the time I need the other people in my life to let me know when I've done too much. And that usually comes from my manager or from my parents or from my partner. And they'll be like, hey, you're doing too much. You need to take a day off. Learning to say no to things and learning to take time out and learning that it's okay to take time out is such a vital lesson that we need to learn. And really important to humans as a whole, but especially neurodivergent humans who are experiencing the world in such a more extreme state than other humans are. Yeah,
I agree. Okay, so we're going to take questions now from everyone else here. So if you would like to ask a question, can I ask that you write question first before you type it so that I can spot them, because I am on my own here. I don't have anyone helping me with the chat, and there's a lot in the chat already. There's more people to admit. Hang on. So yes, if you would like to ask Chloe a question, now is your chance. Okay, so I've got one here. Was Quinny written explicitly to be an autistic character before you signed on?
Quinny was written to be a neurodivergent character. So her casting brief said that she was neurodivergent, and that was it. There was also talks in the beginning of the casting process of whether she was just coded to be neurodivergent, or if she actually was explicitly stated to be neurodivergent. So I came on and I was like, I'm not doing this unless she's actually autistic or actually neurodivergent, because we've had too many coded characters because directors are too scared to use, to use the word autism. So she was coded to be neurodivergent, and then I came on and was like, okay, she can't be coded, she has to actually be neurodivergent, and then we made the decision that she was autistic. Okay. I've got one here. It's not a specific question, but it might be quite interesting. It says, there's no name, says, I'm an autistic singer, actress and writer as well, and you're really inspiring, Chloe. I've always had big dreams of making it big one day and having little autistic girls look up and let them be seen. I'd love there to be an autistic Disney princess. I thought you might like to. I think we could get your ideas on an autistic Disney princess. Yes, absolutely. Let's make it happen. Okay, right. Let me find where I am again. Will you be visiting more places in the UK? Not this time. I have a very, very chock-a-block booked out schedule in the UK and Australia for the foreseeable future. So I wish I could go to so many more places. I would literally come to all of your houses individually if I had the means to. But unfortunately, we only have the ability to go to so many places. So unfortunately, I'm only doing 2 places in the UK this time, but hopefully in the future there will be a bigger tour. Do you want to say where they are, the 2 places? Yes, unfortunately both places are completely booked out. However, the 2 places are in Brighton and in Essex. Okay. Oh, and by the way, have you gone to Titanic stuff while you're in Ireland? I haven't, because the Titanic Museum up in Belfast is closed over the winter, so I haven't been able to go, but I'm hoping to be back in Ireland at the end of this year. So and I'm going to be back with my family next time, and I want to experience it with other people. So hopefully I will be able to go there, because I'm very excited about it. Yes. Okay. Next question, from Amy, can you tell us anything about Heartbreak High season 2? No. Okay, well, that was quick. Right, question from Laura. What would your tips be for dealing with being newly diagnosed? I was diagnosed last year at 34. First of all, congratulations on the diagnosis.
Yeah, we
Second
send
of all,
cakes, by the way. We send cakes.
oh my God, I love that. Second of all, do as much research as you possibly can. And by research, I don't mean go and like get textbooks from the library, unless the textbook is my book. But I mean, go and follow autistic people on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and join autistic networks and groups. And whether that's on Facebook, if you live in a more remote location, or in-person groups, there are so many incredible groups. Literally in any country, wherever you live, I guarantee there will be groups in your area. And if there's not, like I said, online groups. Surround yourself with positive neurodivergent influence, whether that is online or in person. It is going to make a world of difference.
Okay, question from Erica. Do you have any advice for coming out as neurodivergent or autistic?
I think the way that you do it and the time that you choose to do it is entirely up to you. However, letting people know that you're neurodivergent, I think it's so important. And I think it is important to do it sooner rather than later. And if your fear is that people aren't going to treat you the same or aren't going to value you the same because they know that you're neurodivergent, you don't want those people in your life. You don't want those people in your circle. You can, and again, however you do it, it's completely up to you. Figure it out. Find something creative. Chances are, a lot of the time, I'll tell people that I'm autistic, and they're like, "Yeah, babe, we know. Like, it's obvious." But again, you know what? If people aren't going to value you for who you are, you don't want them anyway. So whatever way you do it is entirely up to you. But don't be fearful of it, because those that love you will stick around, and those that don't stick around, you don't want to stick around.
Okay, wise words. Question from Michelle. What age were you when you received your diagnosis?
I was 13 when I got my autism diagnosis, and I was 22 when I got my ADHD diagnosis.
Okay. Question from Amy. How do you think advocates can help change the education autistic people receive?
I think by doing exactly that, by advocating. The world has already changed so immensely, and it's because there are so many of us now that are actually advocating and that are refusing to let our voices be silenced. And you can drown out one person, but you can't drown out a million of them. I think by speaking your mind and by sharing your story or sharing other people's stories, I think it's it's in the word, by advocating, you are doing your part.
Yeah, and I would also add that we don't just want to help change the education autistic people receive. We want to change the education everyone receives, because
Yes.
a whole school education on neurodiversity is what's important to change attitudes and to stop the stigma of being autistic.
Massively.
Okay. Question from Josie. What do you think about self-diagnosis versus official?
Oh my God, I talk about this all the time. So many, particularly autistic people, which I find so bizarre, are so against the idea of people that are self-diagnosed. Our diagnostic system is built on an incredibly sexist, incredibly racist, incredibly classist platform that doesn't cater towards the people that are the most vulnerable and that need this diagnosis the most. So until it caters for everyone, it caters to no one. Of course, getting an official diagnosis is preferable, but if you have done your research, if you have looked at the information, the amount of autistic people that will go into a psychologist's office with like 3 binders full of things that they've done research of and that they've highlighted the traits that they have, and their doctor will say, I don't think you're autistic because you made eye contact with me, or I don't think you're autistic because you're a woman, or I don't think you're autistic because you have a partner. It happens so frequently. The amount of autistic people, particularly AFAB people, that misdiagnose or don't receive diagnosis simply because they're a woman is absolutely ridiculous. Self-diagnosed autistics are completely valid because our diagnostic system is completely rubbish.
Fully agree with you there. Okay, question from Jodie. Chloe, are you comfortable with me quoting from what you say in this? You've said a couple of things that would be really impactful with the awareness I'm trying to create in the girls' high school where I work.
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay. Question from Emily. What are your favourite foods, and how do you find your safe foods, especially when traveling?
My favorite foods are banana smoothies and crumpets, and this is going to be a really weird one, but my favorite food combination is white rice and hummus, which I know is bizarre, but don't knock it till you try it. And as far as finding them when I'm traveling, it's my foods are very simple. They're very plain. They're found everywhere, except for crumpets. Apparently, I went into like the local supermarket here and tried to find crumpets, and they don't sell them. And I showed them to my auntie, and she's like, "What is that? I've never heard of a crumpet before." And I was like, "What do you mean?" It was like the biggest culture shock of my life. Anyway, finding my safe food is usually pretty simple because I have the diet of a 1-year-old. I like simple food. I like plain food. I like bland food. So as long as I'm able to cook for myself and able to go and find things myself, it's usually pretty simple.
Okay, so next we've got a question from another Chloe who's 9 years old. She says, I'm autistic too. If you had an autistic child, how would you help them?
I would help them, and this is for an autistic child and any child, teaching them that their minds and all that they are is perfect, that they don't have to conform and they don't have to be someone that they're not, and their loves and their interests and where their intelligence is so important and so safe and so valued. We have such a belief that the only type of intelligence is math and science, and if you aren't intelligent in those subjects, then you're not intelligent. It is so important to value a child and a human being for all aspects of who they are and all aspects of what they are. Encourage your child and nurture them and encourage their interests and believe in all that they are for all that they are. I think is the most important thing. I'm not a parent. I have never been a parent, so I absolutely cannot speak for this properly, but I think if a child knows that they're safe, and if a child knows that the grown-ups in their life love them for who they are, they're going to be okay.
Okay, so the next question is from Judith. Says, can you describe your experience since school, or maybe at school, particularly since I think you mentioned in your book, if you're struggling now, wait for adult life?
My experience at school was horrendous. I had to get homeschooled halfway through year 8 when I was 12 because of how horrendous the bullying was from both teachers and students. Even after getting homeschooled, even after leaving that environment, I was so traumatized by school that I would have panic attacks every time I even came near a school. I couldn't take my siblings to school. I couldn't go to my siblings' school recitals. When I started doing seminars and talks, when I was asked to do my first talk to a group of teachers, I had a panic attack beforehand because I was terrified of them. The school system completely traumatized and ruins my understanding of education and my understanding of school, and it has for so many people, which is why I'm so adamant on changing it.
Yeah, can we talk about what things need to change?
First of all, our curriculum. Similar to what I was saying before, we have this belief that only one brand of intelligence is accepted, and our entire schooling system is built on this capitalistic mindset of creating one type of human being and forcing these children into being one type of human being, which I've always found so silly, because a farmer couldn't be a businessman, and a businessman couldn't be a baker, and a baker couldn't be an actor, and so forth and so on. So the fact that we're trying to force children at the most vulnerable point in their lives to all work the same way and be the same way and act the same way and be the same is so beyond ridiculous to me. We need to completely change our curriculum and completely change the way that we see and that we value and that we perceive education. There are some schooling systems that are doing it brilliant. I think alternative schooling is brilliant. I think homeschooling is brilliant. When I was homeschooled, and I suck at math, I cannot do it. But when I was homeschooled, the math that I was doing was learning how to feed my horses the right amount of food and learning how to judge the strides in my horses jumping, and learning about the engineering of the Titanic. And when I was learning about stuff that I loved and that I was interested in, I was better at math than anyone. In fact, I excelled in math. I got awards for math in year 12, which is ridiculous because I couldn't even do a times table now. We need to teach kids and to value and to accept their minds, and stop trying to force this belief that you have to be one type of brilliant when there are so many different types of brilliance.
Absolutely. Okay, well, next we have a question from Ruby. She says, are you going to write another song?
Oh my goodness. I've gotten this question a few times and it always surprises me because I didn't even think that anyone knew that I release music. I have written a lot more songs. I just haven't had the time or the confidence to go into studio to actually produce them. But it is something I'm still interested in doing. So maybe.
Okay, we're not getting a definite answer there, but we'll have to accept that. The next question says, how do you manage traveling without meltdowns and burnout?
Oh, I don't. I definitely still have meltdowns and burnout when I travel. Learning to accommodate myself and learning to use the supports that I have. So I will always bring noise cancelling headphones with me when I travel. I will always bring my weighted blankets with me when I travel, or bring stim toys when I travel. And honestly, like, screw anyone that looks at me weirdly, because like I'm allowed to have accommodations with me in order to make my life that little bit easier. We don't exist to please the outside world. We exist to look after and to please ourselves. Also, again, making sure that I'm taking that downtime and making sure that in a schedule that is so hectic, trying to have those times of just being is really, really important.
Yeah, okay. The next one is from CK and says, will your Eye Sparkle hoodie be available in the UK?
Yes. Oh, actually, it'll be available in Ireland for the Kilkenny talk that I'm doing, but I don't believe I'll be having merch stands in the UK. However, it is available in my shop, so you can get it there.
Okay. The next question is from Fran. You mentioned that sharks are a passionate interest of yours. Do you have a favorite type of shark? I knew we'd get back to passionate interests.
I think my favorite shark of all time is probably a whale shark, but I also am a massive fan of white sharks and a huge fan of cookie cutter sharks. I just the go and Google cookie cutter sharks, because they're like this big and like they've literally destroyed the US Navy. Like the US Navy spends millions every year because of these little bastards. Like I freaking love them. Go and Google them, please. They're so funny.
How do you feel about wobbegongs? Because they were always my son's favorite shark.
Oh, where I live, we have wobbegongs everywhere. Like like we go swimming with wobbegongs all the time. Like they're just like the vibiest little dudes.
I suspect that everyone here thinks that that is actually really cool, because we don't get to do that. Okay, the next question is from Rebecca and says, oh, we've already answered how old were you when you were diagnosed. How did you find the process of getting diagnosis and finally receiving it? Was it a relief?
No, because when I got my diagnosis, I didn't know what autism was. I got my diagnosis because my teacher thought I had brain damage from falling off my horse. So I thought that I had a fatal illness, particularly because when I got my diagnosis, my mum started crying. And as a kid, you know, I had CT scans and MRI scans, and then I was in a doctor's office for 6 weeks, like, you know, a couple hours a day for 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, I must be dying, because that's the only conclusion you can come to when you're 13 and you've been a doctor for that long. So initially getting a diagnosis was absolutely not a relief whatsoever, particularly because when I then went home and Googled autism, the only things I found were these horrible fear-mongering articles making my mind out to be negative and to be a curse and to be awful. So originally it was terrifying, and again, which is why I'm so passionate about making sure that young people don't have to go through that. Now though, and like even like a week after the diagnosis, it definitely had that relief effect, because I was able to go, okay, well, at least there's a name for it now. And for so long my label was weird and strange and different and doesn't fit in and doesn't belong. And then it changed to she's autistic, and so are millions of other people. So it was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not an alien after all.
You're definitely not an alien. Okay, next question is from Amy. Any advice for late diagnosed autistics?
We've kind of already answered this question. I think the biggest thing is finding support groups, whether that is in local in-person support groups or whether it's online. It's surrounding yourself with other autistic and other neurodivergent people and people that appreciate you and love you for who you are. Doing your research and discovering more about your minds. The more that you learn about your brain, the better you're going to be.
And the more everyone else learns about your brain, everyone around you. Yeah. So next question from Claire. What do you hope to see and read in the future in terms of stories featuring neurodivergent characters and experiences?
I hope that we see neurodivergent characters simply existing within media. Like, I hope that we see neurodivergent characters and them being neurodivergent is the most unimportant, unexciting thing about them, that they just so happen to be disabled, that they just so happen to be neurodivergent, but they're whole, colorful, fleshed out characters. And I hope we see it in so much more, and that characters like Quinny aren't history making. They aren't breaking molds, they aren't breaking stigmas. That you see characters like Quinny and it's like, okay, duh, like obviously you'd see someone like her. I hope we get to a point where having these token characters isn't a token anymore, that it's just expected.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How did you cope at school with bright lights and loud noises and breaks, lunchtime?
Very bad. I cried lots. I got sick lots, and I hid in the back of the library or in a bathroom for most of the day. School lights, and like I was saying about the education system before, it's not just like our curriculum, but it's the way that school buildings are. It's the way that that classrooms are set up, and that sessions are set up, and that buildings are set up is very unpractical for autistic people and unpractical for a lot of people. Yeah, it sucked.
It does. Okay, question from Manon. What do you do to help yourself when you identify a burnout coming?
Find a safe space and give myself access to the supports that I need. If I know that I'm going into burnout and I have the ability to, I will cuddle myself up in my room with all of my animals, and I will put on one of my favorite cartoons, and I'll allow myself the resources and the space and the time to let myself recover. And I think learning to do that has been such an impactful thing.
Okay, question from Katie. Who are your neurodivergent heroes?
Oh my goodness. Greta Thunberg, I love her. I think she's cool as hell. I think she is the coolest person. Like, she
follows us on Twitter. That's our only claim to fame.
I am in love with her. I think she is just the most like badass woman. I think she is so cool. Other neurodivergent heroes, we have an incredible singer and comedian and podcaster in Australia called Em Rusciano. I don't know if she's made it internationally, but she is an incredible woman. I love her. She is absolutely sick. I have definitely blanked and cannot think of any other out of the closet neurodivergent people. But I know that our entire entertainment industry is filled to the brim with them. And yeah, I think any neurodivergent person who is making waves in this world, and you know what? Most people who are making waves in this world are neurodivergent, because we are cool as hell and we do things outside of the box, which creates change and creates cool stuff. But yeah, I can't think of anyone specifically right now.
That's okay. Right, I'm afraid I don't understand the next question, but it's from Izzy, and Izzy says, did your froggy Anura get asked back for season 2 of Heartbreak High?
I actually genuinely don't know. We haven't received the script yet. But when I do move back up to see, Anura originally wasn't in the script. I went to the script writers and was like, I'm going to buy a frog and Quinny is going to have a frog. And they were like, oh, okay. And I was going to take no for an answer. So she just I forced her to be in the script. And so I'll probably force her to be in the second one. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like she's going to be in season 2. I think we can safely say that. Okay, from Sydney, how did you get started with speaking and giving seminars? What was your process like for booking gigs when you were first starting out?
I started blogging, and that blog started to kind of blow up. And an autism group in my area who had been following me for some time was like, hey, we're doing a conference, can you come and speak at it? And I was like, whoa, that's weird. I've never thought about doing that before. And I was like, okay, sure, let's try this. And I sucked. It was so bad. I was stuttering and stumbling and muffled the whole time. But then I was like, okay, like I can get better at this. So I went home and I sat down with my dad and we created a bit of a script together and figured out what was important to talk about. And I would rehearse these scripts in front of him, and he would ask me questions as if he was an audience. And I got asked to do more gigs, and I got a little bit better and a little bit more confident in myself and in my abilities and in my speaking each time. And I just kind of built from there.
Okay. I am going to say there's another 81 questions, and we are definitely not going to finish them by 9 o'clock. But anyway, we will do as many as we can. Right. So the next question is from Emily, who is one of our trustees, actually. And she says, have you experienced any stigma around being autistic, and how have you managed that?
Sorry, you glitched out in that last part of the question.
Oh, sorry. So this is from Emily. Have you experienced any stigma around being autistic, and how have you managed that?
Oh, absolutely. I've experienced stigma both ways. I've experienced stigma of people saying, you're not actually autistic. This is all fake. You're doing this for views and to make money and to get a career. And then I've had people saying the opposite, going like, oh, you're autistic, and autistic people shouldn't be allowed to act and shouldn't be allowed to have a platform, and you're too woke and you're trying to change the world, and we don't like that and stuff. If you are doing anything of worth, you're going to get flack for it. People are going to call you out on it. But looking at the positives and looking at the one comment in amongst a group of 1,000 comments that is saying that sort of stuff, looking towards the positive ones is definitely a really important thing to learn. But yeah, there's definitely absolutely been flack for that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Question from Jen. Chloe, how has your autism changed as you've become an adult? I feel like I struggle much more as an adult.
I think as a kid, being autistic wasn't as noticeable. It wasn't as noticeable that I was autistic. It wasn't until I was in high school that the kind of differences between me and my peers became that much more obvious. As an adult, I think that still rings true, that there are so many things that my peers are able to do that I can't do. But also as an adult, I am so much more confident in who I am and confident in my diagnosis and confident being an autistic human being than I was when I was a teenager as well. And understanding that, yes, there are things that my peers are doing that I can never do. And there are things that I can do that my peers will never be able to do. And finding comfort in those differences and feeling confident in those differences has definitely changed a lot as I've gotten older.
Okay. This is from Heather. It's not a question, but she wants you to know that the Titanic Museum in Cork is very worth going to as well.
Oh my God, I didn't know there was a Titanic. Okay, I'm going to Google that as soon as this finishes.
See, you've learned something on here tonight. Right. Question from Sam. What one thing would you tell high school teachers that would open their eyes to autism in girls?
Oh my goodness. Autistic girls are so hidden and are so not seen. Our traits are so different than the stereotype traits that you believe autism to be, particularly as teenage girls that aren't autistic mask. They pretend to be someone else in order to fit in order to exist, in order to survive. Being autistic just changes that by tenfold and puts it up by tenfold. There are so many hidden struggles that are going on. And if you can be that one voice and that one person that can help that teenager, that can help that young autistic woman, you are going to so dramatically alter their life. I had one teacher in my 13 years of schooling that was that person for me. And I still think about her every single day. I know without a doubt that she changed my life.
Oh, that's lovely. Right, question from Claire. Is anyone too young to understand they are autistic? Can you have that discussion with kids of any age?
Absolutely. I have been asked so many times by parents, when's the right time to tell a child that they're autistic? And the answer is, as soon as you know, they need to know. Even if a child doesn't know what the word autism means, they know what it means to feel different. And they know what it means to be told that they're weird, and to be told that they're strange, and to be told that they don't fit in. And they know what it feels like to feel different than their peers and the other kids around them. Changing that label from I'm weird and I'm strange and I don't fit into I'm autistic is going to make a lot of difference. There is no such thing as being too young to have a better sense of identity.
Absolutely. Right, question from Janet. She says, Oh, they say, I'm a young teen who is autistic. Social life is really hard. I can never pick up social cues. How do you pick up social cues?
I am not very good at picking up on social cues. I say a lot of things that I probably shouldn't say. And honestly though, I think it's a matter of like, the more you do, the more you learn, sort of thing. The more that you get yourself out into groups and stuff, and the more that you interact with the people around you, I think the more that you're going to learn. I think it's the same with everything. I guess like the way that you can kind of relate to it is like, you know how like a spider, like as soon as the spider is born, they know how to weave a web. I feel like typicals are kind of like a spider in the fact that like they already know how to weave a web from the moment they're born. It's already in their brain. And for autistic people, we don't weave a web, we weave something else altogether, and we have to learn, oh, okay, we're actually not supposed to do this, we're supposed to do this. And you know what? The amount of times that neurotypicals do things and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? I genuinely believe that the only reason why autistic people are considered weird is because there's less of us. Like, I think if neurotypical people were like, if there was as many neurotypical people as there are autistic people, like they'd be locked in an asylum or something. Like neurotypical people are weird as heck, dude. But I think as far as it comes to social cues, first of all, most social cues are silly. Like you don't need to make eye contact. You don't need to shake people's hands. You don't need to have physical interaction with someone. You do you, and you'll come to learn the things that you need to know.
Okay. Nikki says, I have an almost 9-year-old ADHD daughter who ebbs and flows with the acceptance of being ADHD, focusing at the moment on the struggles she faces as the school year challenges begin with friendships and the pressure of academics. She comes from a big ADHD family. Do you have any other words that can be encouraging for her or other ways to explain it?
Sorry, I completely blanked out of that question. Could you ask that again?
Okay, so basically, she's almost 9 years old. She's autistic and ADHD, and she's struggling to accept it.
Okay, cool, sick. I think as the grown-up in your child's life, first of all, embracing and loving her full self, but also embracing and loving your full self. As children, they're sponges. They take in what their parents and what the grown-ups in their life think of themselves and believe about themselves, which is why I'm such a firm advocate that adults in children's lives need to speak nothing but positive about their bodies and their body image and their mental health and their minds and who they are, because children are going to see this and they're going to see their mum talking bad about how they look, and they're going to go, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't look very good either. And it's the exact same with your minds. Speak positively about your mental health and your minds and your differences and your quirks and your uniqueness, and your child is going to start doing the same. And speak positively about your child's quirks and your child uniqueness, and embrace all that they are and their interests and their loves and their quirks and the things that they can do, and don't worry about the things that they can't do, because the things that a person and a human being can do are so much more important.
Okay, right, I'm just scrolling through to find more questions that we haven't already covered. Alana says, I think I'm going to know the answer to this, but Alana says, did your high school have good accommodations for you after your diagnosis?
No, my teacher beat me up. And
oh dear.
I left school as soon as I got my diagnosis. My psychologist told my parents to take me out of school because she told them that if they kept me in school any longer, they probably wouldn't have a daughter for much longer. So no.
Okay. Question from Evie, who is Lily's daughter. Do you have any advice on either making friends as an autistic person or recovering from an eating disorder as an autistic person?
Making friends as an autistic person, finding people that have the same interests as you is such an easy way to make friends, because you don't have to small talk. Like, all of your conversations can immediately be related to the things that you're interested in. And for most interests, there are groups available. If like your thing is like Lego, there's Lego groups everywhere. If your thing is arts and crafts, go find an arts and crafts group. If it's animals, go like take your dog to the dog park, or go like horse riding, or go to the zoo, or whatever it is. There is always ways to access friends. And I think a lot of the time it's really hard for autistic people to make friends because particularly autistic children, to make friends, because the peers that we are with are our fellow students, and a lot of the time we're not going to have anything in common with them other than the fact that we're the same age and probably live in the same district, and that's about it. Joining groups, whether that's online or in person, of people that are there because they're all interested in the same thing, is so incredibly important. In terms of recovering from an eating disorder, it is vital to go see a therapist, to see a psychologist. Do not do that by yourself. Anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness, so it is not something that you should do alone. It is something that it is so vital that you, number one, tell your grown-ups about, and number two, seek professional help.
Okay, for all the people that have recently joined us, we are about to have the last question, but we are recording this and it will be on our YouTube channel, so you will be able to re-watch it. Okay, so the last question is from Catherine. What would be the top 3 things you think teachers in school should know to make the day better for autistic girls?
Oh my goodness, there are so many things. First of all, autistic girls probably aren't going to speak out when they need help. A lot of teachers are like, oh, but if I knew that they needed help, I would give it to them. A lot of the times autistic girls don't want to ask for help because they already feel so outcast, they already feel so excluded. They're not going to exclude themselves even more by putting their hands up and letting you know that they're struggling with something. Speak with the autistic girls in your class directly. Speak with them and ask them what they need, ask them what accommodations they need. I know a teacher who has little codes with the neurodivergent children in her class, and if they need help, they'll have like a rubber on their desk and they'll put it up to the front of their desk if they need help, so it's a code that just the 2 of them know. Have something like that. If the child needs accommodations, whether that's noise cancelling headphones or a weighted blanket or stim toys in class, allow them to have those accommodations. I promise you that these accommodations are not going to hinder their education. It's going to help them, even if it feels like it doesn't, even if it doesn't look like they're paying attention. By allowing them to have these accommodations, they're going to be paying attention. And I think the biggest thing is just understanding them and understanding that their minds aren't going to work the same way that other kids are. And that's fine. That's brilliant. Autistic and neurodivergent minds are magical. And if you can work into that, and if you can help that, and if these autistic kids can leave the classroom feeling understood and feeling embraced and feeling accepted, that is the best thing as a teacher that you can do.
Fantastic. And it is exactly 9 o'clock. So as promised, we are going to finish right now. I really hope that you managed to get some chill time, Chloe, on this trip. Have a great time the rest of your time in Ireland, and then have a great time in Brighton and can't remember the other place that you're going. Essex. Okay, have a great time there, and then safe trip back to Australia.
Thank you very much.
And we'd love to talk to you again at some time in the future, but make sure that you don't do too much.
Will do. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.